This video, I'm gonna talk about my training plan for the dam. Um, I'm not gonna get super in the depth in that exact training rides and things that I did, but I'll give you a general overview of kind of how I approached this part of preparing for the dam race. So, what I was essentially on was a 16-week general training plan provided to me from my coach. And this was just a good template, but obviously I had to modify some things to fit, a 240-mile gravel race, on the gravel. So that was the biggest thing. So that was there as a framework for me, and then I essentially took that and made it fit into what worked for the dam race. So obviously the longer race, some longer rides you need to do and such. If you're not doing as longer race, you don't need to be on as long as a training plan. But anyways, I think the first and foremost important thing to talk about training is this was a gravel race. So where was I mostly training? On gravel, right? Practice what you're basically training for. So as much as I could, I would get on the gravel whenever I could, rain, sleet, snow, whatever the case may be. Obviously, if I was tight on time or conditions weren't well, I'd have the indoor trainer to work on, or I would do the roads around Minneapolis. But most of my time was spent on gravel roads. To give you an overview of my training plan in terms of the schedule, essentially, how it worked for me, is I had 2 to 3 mainly shorter interval or tempo type workouts that I would do per week. And then, that's, pushing it, whether it's building my endurance, my speed, power on those interval type rides, and tempo, just, pushing the pace. And then 1 to 2 days a week, I would just do a free ride or basically have an off day. So this is just going out, having some fun, not worrying about training, more as just a kind of recovery and, taking your mind off training every once in a while. And then usually one day on the weekend, I would do a long 3 to 4, even up to, 9-hour rides to prepare myself for being being on the saddle for a long time. So that's the general overview of what my weeks were over the 16-week course, and then obviously a day in there for rest or recovery. Um, Going back to my long haul rides, I was just gonna forgot to say something there, but did a ton of rides. There's so much out there, and back to why I love gravel. There's so many gravel roads and routes out there, whether they're around Minneapolis, out in the country and farmland. And then I also took some short vacations out west where I was doing rides in the mountains in Montana, Colorado. So that's kind of the beauty of it. And the training of this is that I could be super flexible with it and do what worked best for my schedule. Aside from the training now, and I'll get a little bit more into the specifics of my training in another video where it's basically my strength, activity, kind of tracking chart. And another thing to talk about too now is strength. I also built in strength, so strength into my training routine, usually 1 to 2 times a week. Especially earlier on, I was doing more strength, but as I got closer to the event, I kind of held back. But mainly these were workouts where I do a warm-up, do a strength-based workout, whether it's focus, on things related to the bike. So think glutes, deadlifts, chest, tries, those kind of movements, and then some sort of kind of high intensity training where I do some sort of circuited workout. As I got closer to the race, I was doing less strength workouts, but at times, I would still focus on my abs, building ab strength and hip strength. So even if that was 10 to 15 minutes a day, I was definitely incorporating that into my training schedule. So we have kind of the training ride schedule, or training rides, strength. And then the last piece that was built into my training was obviously recovery. Recovery is a big piece to grow in terms of building strength. So those were definitely incorporated into my schedule. And a lot of the ways I approach rest and recovery is I went on a ton of walks. I think that was the thing I did the most. I have a dog here, Jasper. You might be able to see him. He's outside with me right now. But I go on a ton of walks, whether that was after a ride or on my off days. But there's nothing better than just getting out on a walk. So find a good excuse to just get outside, walk around, have fun. It's just a great way to kind of meditate and take in, surroundings and getting all the training aside. I bake or cook a lot. That was just one way for me to creatively express myself, so I enjoy doing that. Um, I do a lot of meditation. I know some people are intimidated by meditation and thinking that's something they have to do and sit still for 15 to 20 minutes, but sometimes for me, really, I just try to incorporate 2 to 3 minutes of basic breath work, finding a nice, comfortable spot within my house or outside, and just working on my breathing. And then also, kind of hand in hand with the breath work, is yoga. So I do a lot of that to just, stretch out, recover, remain that balance and strength a little bit, and build that through yoga. And then another important component that I believe with rest and recovery is just socializing, or getting out and giving back. So that's kind of two ways: getting with friends, going on a ride, just hanging out. Um, so those are a few things that I did, as well as giving back. I coach a little bit too, so they say something directly related to what you enjoy doing, like biking, for example, and then finding something that you can do to give back, aside from you actually training or biking. So coaching was something for me that I was, can help for recovery, at that point. And maybe last but not least, most importantly to mention is sleep. Getting a good, you kind of got to find your sweet spot in terms of how much you need. So there's some different things you can do out there to test out how much sleep you need. But I was usually around 8.5 hours, and on difficult training weeks, I may even be sleeping more. I wouldn't even set an alarm, and I'd sleep as best as I could. So those are just a few components into my entire training plan. So again, those consisted of bike training rides over a 16-week period, strength, free rides, forgot to mention those, and then off days or recovery. All right, on to the next one.